All right. Shalom, family. Shalom, peace, peace, peace. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. Shalom, shalom, family. Peace, peace again. Welcome. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A and D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Hopefully all is well with everyone. Hopefully everybody's ready. Hopefully you've gotten your Passover lamb. Prayerfully everybody who's on their way is going to make it in safely. We're getting everybody, seeing where everybody is and trying to get our setup for tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be able to get all that together. We thank you guys for being on. Appreciate you all. Love you all. When we say we appreciate you, we mean that we lift you up in value as Yahweh does himself. We're thankful and grateful for another opportunity to be with you guys one more again. Alrighty. And tomorrow we will have like a little Q&A. There will be a special Q&A. We won't have our official Q&A till Sunday, but we'll have tomorrow Q&A for Passover. That also includes Passover. That means what happened to Yehashua on Passover. That means if you have questions as far as Passover in general, Passover as far as the meals, the lamb, the setup, herbs, juice, wine, matzah, etc., all are welcome to join us tomorrow when we come back on the live session. So we'll take a brief break from Bottle Shots tomorrow to do a special Passover Q&A to make sure that everybody's got everything together. I'll probably speak. We'll see what Holy Spirit does for us on Friday, on the actual rising before Passover. But welcome everybody. Thank you so much once again. Hopefully you got your lamb, your bitter herbs, your matzah, your wine, or your juice, whichever one you choose to do, and you're ready to go. Praise Yah. Won't be holding you guys too long. We know that the time is near for us to get into the sixth word tonight, which is it is finished. So we had the first word on Friday last week, Friday evening. First word given by Minister Tracy. Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. Second word given by Minister Stephen. Today you be with me in paradise. Third word was given on Sunday. Mother behold thy son, son behold thy mother. Fourth word was given by Elder Selected Nais. My Elohim, why hast thou forsaken me? The fifth word was given by Elder Select Nines as well. I thirst, and then the sixth word tonight will be given by Elder Select Tamara. So we're excited about that. We're thankful and grateful for what Yahweh is doing. So thank you for being on with us on all platforms. We'll say shalom real quick to everybody, and we'll get ready to say our Bible pledge and jump right in. How you doing, Sister Deborah? How you doing, Sister Beck? How you doing, Brother TJ, Sister Joy, late coming, Patricia, Dylan, Sister Knight, Dream, everybody, Darius, Big Brother Thomas, Mean. Oh, okay, Mean Servant. I can't say that on here at this time. But thank y'all for being on. Prayerfully everybody can see and hear us all right. Mic check 1 2, check her phone. Microphone checker 1 2, check it. Mic check 1 2. Hopefully everybody can hear us and see us all right. How you doing, Sister Michelle? Thanks for sharing it live. It's for those who are doing that as well. How you doing, Tone Johnson? Everybody, come on in. All right, so these are brief messages that we're doing. Usually I wouldn't be on a Tuesday or Wednesday, but we're doing it these evenings and moving them up due to our 7 last words and getting ready for Passover. So we've been discussing different things going on scripturally and what they mean. So let's go ahead and get into it for tonight. If you want to go ahead and just repeat after me for the Bible pledge. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahashua as Lord, no sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hashem Yechavach, Aman, which is Yahweh Shem, his name is authority. Amen. All right. How you doing, Machin? How you doing, MIT Akita? Everybody, please check out MIT Akita's shea butter and things like that. She has great orders and stuff like that, or does has a lot of great product you can order. She does soaps as well. Made by hand. I know that many persons have been saying they've been enjoying them, so thank you for supporting her. Let's continue to support her in what she's doing in her business. Praise God. All righty. Also, too, I'm gonna try and see if I can get another order soon to myself, because your boy's feet are looking like he been dipping himself in cauliflower and then running through miles and miles of wheat, and then soaking my feet in in flour. All right, but so I know I need some in my life right about now. Crazy. Anyway, so. Let's talk about today. I want to talk about these herbs, these bitter herbs, and kind of the correlation of some things going on with the bitter herbs. So we talked about this a little bit last night. We were focusing mostly in on the lamb, the preparation of the lamb, but we're focusing in on bitter herbs today. Now, the bitter herbs, basically, if you're using, herbs, we kind of suggested a few. The main one that we usually going to use no matter what is rosemary. But I mean, you have rosemary, you have what were the ones arugula? We went through a list of them yesterday. There were even some suggested. Spinach was one that was suggested. I still haven't really seen. I guess spinach can kind of sort of be considered to be a bitter, but we wanted to actually be like a bitter. So I know there's some spinach strains that maybe not so much. How you doing, Double OG, Triple OG? How you doing, Minister Tracy? So, but we talked about a little bit of this yesterday, and talked about the preparation and how we need to do it exactly the way the Most High says. How you doing, Minister Stephen? And so, how you doing, Sister Snap? So, when we were speaking on, so when we were speaking on, and how you doing, Denise? When we were speaking on the bitter herbs, bitter herbs in general are going to help you with your stomach, help you with digestion, help you with blood flow. Really, it's something that helps the whole body. And technically, every herb helps the whole body because the body's connected. So if your digestion's better, then obviously, like if your magnesium levels are high enough and your digestion is better, then it means that everything you eat is digested by the whole body, right? So like it's kind of like that with anything. If you're having something that you're eating for mammary glands or something like that, then obviously you're dealing with things that are going to help your blood flow, since your milk is technically your blood, right? So when we talk about herbs, really all herbs help all of the body, but what you're telling a herb to do is to focus in on a part of the body. For example, if a sister were getting ready to have birth or has had birth and she's breastfeeding, let's say she feels like she's not getting enough iron, or let's say actually the iron's not great, because if she's had a baby, the baby doesn't really need iron, believe it or not. When they're first developing, they're actually supposed to have a lot of iron when they're born, actually lose a lot during their growth, and then start developing the iron again later on. But let's say, let's say like the mother's having oxygen level issues, right? She's having oxygen level issues. So we could easily give her something like grapes, right? Grapes with seed, not just any grape, but grapes with seed. Grapes without seed are things that have been, whether they grow them outside or not, they're still considered to be chemically enhanced, right? Or chemical change, modified. So if you get grapes with seed, that would be something to be great for her breathing, right? But let's say the baby might be having issues with mama having issues too. So let's say, okay, we want to make sure that the baby doesn't have the same issues. So we would say, okay, eat vitamin C, eat an orange, eat a lime, eat a lemon, right? Eat grapefruit, something along those lines, right? Because what that herb is doing is helping the whole body, but what that herb is also saying is, I'm going to focus on the mammary gland, the breast area, right, where the milk is going, which also is breast milk production is there too, right? So it was focusing there, and then we would say, okay, now eat the grapes on top of that. And what's going to happen is the grapes that help with the lungs, right, and therefore help with breathing, are going to be pushed, like mainly into the area of the mammary glands, right? So the grapes and the whatever you're using for vitamin C are both going to help immensely, right? But we're telling it by saying vitamin C, or by saying citrus, we're telling it, hey, take whatever you're eating and drive it into the mammary glands, right? And if you're a man and have, some kind of breast issue as well, or chest issue as well, we would suggest the same thing, right? It works for male and female. But, just give an example, right? So when I talk about herbs are not like only for one place in the body, right? They help the whole body, but we're telling it to focus in an area. So you have to make sure that you're aware of how it focuses in the area. That's why if you have a broken bone, like let's say you have something that's broken and you're trying to have it mended together, there are certain types of herbs you can eat that will really heal your bone real fast. One is so fast that if you're not careful, it will actually heal it wrong if it's not set correctly, right? So there's like certain herbs where even if you have a broken bone and you're like, I want to make sure that I have a certain herb to eat it, I'm not going to say the name of it because some of you might try to do it, right? But make sure that we would say, hey, first make sure it's set properly. Now, if it's a fracture, right, especially if it's a microfracture, we might go, oh, okay, a fracture, go ahead, you can have this herb, not the other herb, because this herb does well and will kind of work with your bone to just put it together. Now, if it's a microfracture as well, we might say take the other herb because we know it's set or we know it's a microfracture, it's small, okay, cool, just get it back together as soon as possible and it'll heal really fast. So I just want to kind of put that out there where I'm talking about herbs tonight. I'm going to say some things that if you're not careful, you'll think, oh, Pastor Kofi saying, and by the way, I'm not a herbalist anyways, right, or a doctor. That being said, I am speaking some truth, and I do want to make sure that we don't hurt ourselves. So when I say herbs can be something that help the whole body, they can, but they're still telling, when you eat the herb, it's still telling the body, right, we're telling the body this is how we want you to focus in on what you're getting, right? So just want to make that clear that we're in the same place. How you doing, Sister Carla? How you doing, Bold Servant? Let's see, and thank you for the love. How you doing, Sister Drea, Kayvon, Judith, Danielle, Yosef, excuse me, everybody. Please forgive me if I miss anybody on any platform, Sister Sheena, Rodney. All right, so today I want to talk about, from the perspective, Holy Spirit has me coming from the perspective of bitter herbs, but we're going to talk about bitter slavery. Bitter slavery. Okay? I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. We got to get ready. Just have the music start playing at about 7:45 New York time, and then we're going to have, obviously, start the 7 Last Word service at about, or at around 8 o'clock p.m. New York time. How you doing, Joshua? So once again, tonight we're going to talk about bitter slavery. Baba Kasha. We're going to speak on bitter slavery. Now, the bitters that we eat, once again, they're bitter. But the things that are bitter, they're helping with digestion, they're helping with blood flow, they're helping with a lot of different things throughout the whole entire body, right? By the way, if you want another thing for bitters, we talked about rosemary and sage and arugula and stuff like that. Also, don't forget that you can have one that's easy for you to pick is dandelion, right? I used to take, when I was being better with my eating habits, I would take, if I was, pasta, usually some kind of vegetable pasta, or if I was doing like even quinoa or rice or something, and I would actually take, chop up dandelion. I would grab some from outside, and I would chop it up, and I would actually place it in there, whether it's the dandelion that has the spores, whether it's the dandelion that is the flower. I would take them and chop it up, and I would serve it with the stuff bitter, right? If you do spaghetti, regular spaghetti, it's actually something that works pretty well. You'll be, depending on how much you put in, you'll be able to taste it, but I put it right in and boiled it with the, I don't know if I always boiled it, sometimes I put it in the sauce, but anyway, dandelion's another bitter you can use. Anything that's a bitter herb, right? So it hasn't appeared there yet. Yeah, I just started seeing some of it I think we saw some dandelion in Oklahoma and some in Texas, maybe. Might have seen some, we definitely saw some in Alabama, so it seems like it's starting to peek its head a little bit. But anyways, so the bitters are supposed to be things that help us and help the digestion, help the body overall, right? Now, one of the things that has been, that if you look in your Bible and you read in Revelation starts telling you about bitter herbs, right? Matter of fact, if somebody can look it up, because I don't have it in front of me right now. Revelation chapter 6, you probably want to start reading somewhere around verse 11 to 12. It talks about a bitter herb that's thrown in. I don't know why I'm having an issue with this name of it right now in my head, but there's a bitter herb that's thrown into the water, right? When you get a chance, read it. I know Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 and 2 is first horseman, 3 and 4 second horseman, 5 and 6 third horseman, 7 and 8 is the fourth horseman, verse 9 through like 12 or 11, 12, somewhere in there has to do with those who are the martyrs who are waiting for vengeance and to be taken by Yahweh on their behalf. And then after that, so somewhere around verse 12-ish, if you start reading, you'll come, Wormwood is the name of it. And so wormwood. And when you look up wormwood, wormwood is a bitter as well. And wormwood is something that's extremely bitter, but it helps the body to heal. It helps the body to be whole, right? There's Revelation 8:11. Okay. There's somewhere else, I think it's Revelation chapter 4. Oh, I said 4. Revelation chapter 6 as well. Talks about it, where wormwood is thrown into the waters as well, right? I forgot about Revelation 8, to be honest with you. So we had these, and how you doing, Elder Select Tamara? So the wormwood, when it's thrown in, and it talks about it before Israel is mentioned, as far as the branch, that we must be sealed first before anybody grafted can get into heaven. It starts talking about in Revelation chapter 6, towards the end of it, of chapter 6, it starts talking about how the wormwood is thrown into the water, right? And a lot of persons don't realize that water in dreams, a lot of times we usually only think about spirit, which it can be, but water in dreams and visions a lot of times have to do with people or nation. So when you get to Revelation chapter 12, it starts talking about the water that's coming out of Hasatan's mouth, out of the Satan's mouth. That water is actually referring to, that water is actually referring to, that water is actually referring to the people, right? So when you read Revelation chapter 12, it basically goes like this: the serpent went after Yehoshaphat, right? Yehoshaphat is born out of Israel. Israel then leaves and goes into the wilderness. Yehoshaphat then, is resurrected, is on his way back to heaven. The serpent is upset, tries to go up and get to Yehoshaphat. The angels fight on his behalf. He's sent down with fallen angels. He gets upset that he can't get to Yehoshaphat. He tries to come after Israel. He cannot get to Israel, but he spits the water. He spits the people who are into what's coming out of his mouth and who are sent by his own words. He spits the people, the water, towards Israel. Can't get to Israel, so then the water basically comes back, and the remnant that's not in Israel yet is still separate. So since he can't get to Israel, he can't get to Yehoshaphat, right? He's upset with Yahweh. He's been thrown to the earth realm. He starts having the beast come out of the water, which is the people. So the people who worship the Satan are the beast, right? I've never heard the doctrines piece. Maybe that makes sense as far as the waters. I'm not saying it can't be different doctrines. It would make sense if you're talking about, I guess, different people who are in a confused state, that maybe there's different doctrines that are kind of coming together. Not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying I'm looking for biblical reference for it to be doctrines and waters connected. I don't see it. Doesn't mean that it's not, or I don't see it. I can't recall it. Let me put it like that. So, could be. I'm going to put an asterisk on that. I have to do some. You said Revelation 12, 15 through 17. Okay, I can try and see it. Right now I can't look it up, but maybe that's something that we can go back into on a Q&A day, or I can see if I can figure it out and find out. So, but what time? Yeah, so time is getting short. So, yeah, so you see right there that the waters in this case are the people. And out of the peoples comes the government, right? Comes the beast. The beast is the government. The beast comes out of the people, out of the water. And then as that happens, then later on there's a second beast, right? So a lot of persons don't get that when you're dealing with water, you're dealing with people. A lot of times you're dealing with a nation. How you doing, Sister Mignon? Be safe from the travels. So now it says, now go backwards, Revelation chapter 6, you'll see that the wormwood is thrown into the waters, right? And so when this wormwood is thrown into the waters, and it says that it begins all of a sudden, you have to realize that what it's talking about is it's dealing with parasites, because that's ultimately what a lot of bitters, especially wormwood, deal with, is parasites, right? So when you're dealing with, it's saying that the wormwood was thrown into the water, it's saying that there's so many people in the water, or there's so many people in the world, or there's so many persons that are dealing with that are parasites, right? Or have parasites eating off of them, because that's ultimately what a parasite is. It's somebody that eats off of you. There's a such thing as positive parasites and negative parasites, right? But so be careful when some of you are cleansing so much, don't forget that you don't want to flush out, positive parasites, You actually have parasites, you actually want to build up stuff in your mesentery. Matter of fact, what helps you to digest is to make sure that your mesentery and everything has a healthy amount of so-called parasites, right? But that being said, So when it says that the wormwood is thrown into the water, it's talking about parasites. So the bitters represent something that's really powerful, right? That there's been something that's been leeching off of you, or eating off of you. And also too, if you have parasites, especially bad ones in your system for so long, the parasites begin to start to put an impression upon you as far as what you should do, how you should move, right? So a lot of persons don't realize that you're dealing with parasites. A lot of parasites are being, when you have somebody who's in a parasitical type relationship with you, they begin to eat off you and function, and your whole life begins to revolve around the parasite and not you as a healthy being. For example, if you're somebody, and this is not necessarily a parasite, but I'm just going to give you an example similar. Let's say that you drink a lot of stuff and everything you drink is carbonated. Do you know that if you stop drinking stuff that's carbonated, you put down the soda for a little bit, your body is so used to having the carbonation that now you'll actually get acid reflux. And a lot of persons think acid reflux is when it's too much, but it can be when it's too much or too little. So if you have so much carbon, that's been getting in there, and so many bubbles getting in there, your body will stop digesting because it says, I don't need to operate like this. If I do, I will get sick. So rather than get sick, it shuts down. So now all of a sudden here it is where you get off the soda, right, and you start having some problems. It hurts. It's going to hurt you to get back, right, to where you don't have a relationship where your body is depending on something outside of its natural source or its natural cell or its natural setup, right? Or what about how, there are persons who have parasites, in your brain. Persons who eat pork a lot, parasites get in your brain. So much so that even they kill off a lot of brain cells. There's a lot of persons that go to the hospital deal with stuff because of parasites that pig can digest and you can't. So here it is where you got the stuff in your brain, and the parasite wants more of it. So the parasite will keep telling you to eat stuff to feed the parasite. Or you'll have parasites, you might think that you're hungry all the time. You might have a tapeworm, right? You might need to do something to where the tapeworm dies off so that you can actually start having a regular appetite, but you think you have a big appetite when you actually have stuff connected to you. Or some of you going through fibroid cysts. Fibroid cysts a lot of times are things that are actually, eating themselves, they eat for themselves, but they eat off the body, and your body actually a lot of times will close off around the fibroid cyst. And so part of the pain is it's really difficult for your body to get rid of it because your body is trying to heal itself, but at the same time it's hurting itself, right? So your fibroid cyst will send messages, eat this, have this, do this, or whatever. And so a lot of times when we just go, somebody's overweight, this and that, or whatever, we don't think, let's see if there can be a cleanse, or if somebody can fast. But even for fasting gets difficult, right? Because you would love to fast, but you got parasites up in you. So your whole body is saying, we need to eat, right? Not just your whole body, but parasites. That's right, your body's been hijacked. Okay, it's Revelation chapter 8, verse 11, not Revelation chapter 6. Okay. Well, I don't know. Like Tamara, thank you for making sure that you said again, Minister Tracy. It's like Tamara, thank you for making sure that you said again, Minister Tracy. So, yeah, all right, my fault. I see what I did there in my head. I mixed two different verses together. Praise God. Okay, so no longer. So I repent of that. We'll be better with that. Sorry about that. So Revelation chapter 8, verse 11 is where it talks about the wormwood. Excuse me. Revelation chapter 6 at the end, the sixth seal, is talking about, when everything becomes black, etc. So excuse me. All right. So it talks about in Revelation chapter 8, where the wormwood is. And so when we look at the wormwood, and where the wormwood is put into the waters and stuff, when wormwood is basically going into the people, because you got a lot of parasites. Now, why did the Holy Spirit tell us to talk about tonight bitter slavery? But when you look at this correctly, the bitterness of slavery, right? We need wormwood, or you're going to need something to come out, right? So whenever we come out of slavery, whenever we come out of chattel slavery, whenever we come out of a place of unrighteousness, right? You gotta deal with the fact that when you were enslaved, when you were in another culture that wasn't your own, when you didn't know your culture for yourself, when you were dismembered from it, that's why you have to come back and to remember. You have to be remembered from what you were cut off from, right? But when these things happen, when all these things went down, you had to make sure that you are reminded that you have some things that are in the people, that's in the water, right? Some parasites that are in there, right? And first things first, before you drink it, you're going to need to go through a cleanse, right? Before these persons become your people, before you become even the people of Yah, there's a wormwood that's necessary. So we lost ourselves. If you want to talk about 400 years of chattel slavery, right? At least we lost ourselves, right? We lost who we were. We lost our language. We lost our countenance. We lost our belief system. We lost how to speak. We lost language. We lost culture. We lost dress. We lost proper desires. We lost what was needed versus what was wanted. We reversed a lot of it. So when we get into this place now, the bitters, we must recognize not only is this just physical stuff, right? But there's spiritual things. There's a cleanse that's necessary. They're getting ready to leave Kemet. And persons who are Kemetic are even getting ready to leave Kemet. And persons who are Cushitic are getting ready to leave Kemet. And there's going to be other persons who are going to be grafting while they're out there in the wilderness, right? But all of the people, no matter who they are, there's certain things that you have to have cleansing of. You're going to have to be different than what you were. Right? You're going to have to be cleansed. There's some unrighteousness that we're carrying. And so when we're eating the bitter herbs are not just only for us to just go, oh, okay, like, cool, we have bitter herbs. The bitter herbs are also to help us to address the fact that we have a lot of things that are unclean. See, even removing the leaven, in a sense, was you dealing with bitter herbs, right? With a certain sense. And you say with everything we have to make sure we get the root. I'm talking about something. Yeah. So yeah, but we have to get to those different things, and you have to really look at these things correctly. Now, also too, I think I saw somebody put in there earlier. I don't know if you all were talking about the same thing. We're talking about eating something as a whole. And Emmanuel, thanks for being part of the community. Thanks for being on with us. So it's the same thing. Whenever you eat something, your body tries to make it whole. Right? If you're not aware with that, you have to be careful. If you eat a whole bunch of anything that's dehydrated, your body better get some water in it, because your body's going to grab water from somewhere, because your body knows, especially if you're eating something that's natural and you dry it up, raisins, dried apricots, dried, cranberries, whatever you guys are eating that's dried out. If you're having beef jerky, whatever the case might be, when you have something that's dried out, the body knows, right? Nature itself, game recognized game, nature recognized nature. So it's going to take from your body what it needs to try its best to make it a whole thing. That's why you're supposed to, when persons talk about going on a whole diet or a whole food diet, what are they saying? They're saying try to eat whatever you're eating as close to its original form as possible. So if somebody says I'm on a whole food diet, what they're telling you is I'm not taking, I'm probably not doing any kind of puree. I'm not doing any kind of, breaking something down. I'm not doing smoothies. Why? Because I would just eat the pear. I wouldn't grind the pear up, right? Or I wouldn't grind the walnut up into a paste or something like that. I would just eat the walnut. I would just eat the peanut, etc. Right? I would eat it as a whole in its original form. If I'm eating, I think you got to talk about the pomegranate. If I was eating the pomegranate, I need to eat even the seed, right? So the bitter herb must be taken in its full form, right, as much as possible. But also too, it's the same thing for us. There's some things that aren't as sweet. They're going to come across as bitter, but they're necessary for your freedom. They're necessary for you to go back into what Yahweh wants. They're necessary for you to leave Kemet, not just only physically, but also mentally, right? There's some things that you're going to eat that are going to be bitter. This represents even the bitterness that's going to happen on the cross. If it's not for the bitterness of what Yahshua goes through, then how could we enter into something so sweet as a land that's flowing with milk and honey, right? If it was not for the bitter, also too, it helps us to remember the bitterness that we had to go through in Kemet. How many hundreds of years, 400 plus years, right? That we had to go through slavery as well. Not quite chattel slavery, but slavery is slavery to a certain degree, right? And so we had to go through that by our own family members, because we remember we're actually married into Kemetic persons. So we're going through all these different things from persons who are supposed to be like family, but do not recognize, but have said they don't want to recognize the covenant that was made with us, because they don't want to recognize the power that we have, right? They don't want to recognize that one of the reasons we're multiplying is because of what was promised to Abraham. They would have known this. So they say we cut them off because of fear, out of envy, out of frustration, out of, hey, if we allow this to keep on going, they'll eventually not only leave, but they'll take over, which ends up happening anyways. But we went through hundreds of years of bitterness before we finally were able to say, we out. Thank you so much. Not thank you so much. Right? And roll out. And so here we are now coming out of chattel slavery. And we're getting to a place where now it's time for us to do the same. And a lot of persons want you to forget. This is why you got to make sure you remember some of the bitterness. I didn't say be bitter. I know somebody says you are what you eat. I hope you get the content. I didn't say be bitter, right? But eat what's bitter. Be willing to digest it. Be willing to let it get rid of parasites. And that's part of the problem they have. They don't want us to recognize the power that we have now, right? Now you're doing Brother Warren. Yeah, right. Right, exactly. I was select Tamara. You know, so but a lot of persons don't want to talk about bitterness, and you see it. Hey, we don't want our children to learn this. Why are you telling our children they have to know about this? Why, black persons sometimes more than so-called white persons. If you want to make it black and black versus wicked and white, right? How you doing, Kofi? It's the same thing. Like, oh man, you guys are making so many excuses. I forget whoever that black billionaire is that be having on all these shows. He just went on like the Shannon Sharp show. He going around to all these places. He just went on the Shannon Sharp show with Chad Johnson and Chad Ochocinco, and then he went on somebody else's show. I forget who it was, and he was talking about black people, and he was saying, there's no such thing. He's like, we made enough money. We're not black, we're green. And he was like, the reason why this and that is because it's like, I get it. There can be certain things as far as, yes, if you do certain things economically, almost everybody will be able to make a certain amount of money. Money is finite, so not everybody can become a billionaire. That's a lie, right? That's a lie from the pit of hell. That's something that billionaires say. But it's like you listen to them, and they don't even want to gather to the point of we're going to deal with any bitterness at all. Where we're going to say that nothing happened. If we don't discuss, this is why a lot of us still have PTSS and PTSD. As a matter of fact, that brother has PTSD, right? Because he won't even talk about the trauma, right? Somebody who doesn't have PTSD, you can tell when PTSD is done. Like I can tell I still have PTSD because if a gunshot goes off, I still take certain positions. I don't do it as much anymore. Now I'll just turn my head, but it used to be a gunshot go off and I'm going to the ground, right? Like with M16 in hand, right? So you can tell how healed I am by how I react, not by how much I ignore, right? I tried to ignore and just fit right back into society, and my body and my mind told me clearly, like, no, you're not healed yet, right? When my mother passed away, right, I had PTSD for a minute and didn't want to deal with it. And eventually somebody had to say, hey, Kofi, I think you still, dealing with that. You might want to get that checked because you're not the same ever since she passed, right? And I thought to myself, no, I've been preparing for years. She had MS from when I was 6 years old. I knew that, no, I wasn't, no, And come to find out, I had a real God complex, as in she was my God. And that's the last thing she would have ever wanted from me, because even though she wasn't in the truth, she had enough word in her, right, to be able to teach me different than that. You see? So we have to have serious conversations sometimes. We got to eat something that's bitter. Yeah, and it's understandable. Yeah, it's definitely something that we should empathize with others on when they're going through stuff like that, for sure. That being said, though, yeah, like we have to eat the things that are bitter. And right now, if we don't deal with the fact that many of us deal with a slave mentality, and so we look at things from a slave mentality, right? House Negro versus field Negro, as if both of them were slaves. That's one of the things. Although I love the speech because it shows where we're at, I respectfully, and I don't do this often with our ancestor Minister Shabazz or Minister Malcolm X, but I respectfully would say that maybe there was a little more insight that was necessary. Now, I love the speech. I can quote it almost like you're listening to it yourself. I can even give the inflections where you give the inflections and all that. I love the speech. That being said, yes, there are two kinds of slaves. There was the house Negro and the field Negro. And back then we called them the house, and we still got a lot of them today that we call house, blah, 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 right? I can go through the thing. But one thing I would suggest to us and to Minister Malcolm, if I were to look him in the face, I probably would nervously do so, because this is one of the persons that if I ever did meet in life, I would probably have one of those moments like, I don't know if I can talk to this guy. Right? He means a lot to me in my personal walk, just being honest. And I know he's not in the way. I'm just being honest with you. He means a lot to me. That being said, I would suggest to him that, yes, there are two kinds of slaves, but one of the biggest things that they did is teach us that the slaves hated each other, and they got the slaves on the house to hate the slaves in the field. And so they had it to where we wouldn't work together, even though both of us had our own issues. Like slaves in the house, I know everybody just goes, oh yeah, every slave in the house, they slept in the house. That's not the truth, right? That's not the truth. And a lot of slaves in the house were the ones responsible for making sure that the slaves in the field got anything, especially the things that master didn't know they got. So, when you read Uncle Tom's Cabin, Uncle Tom is the protagonist, not the antagonist. The antagonist is Sambo. Uncle Tom was responsible for making sure that everything was getting to the slaves and that he could take care of them as best as he could, even if he had to cry a lot of times because he had to act like he was, yes, sir, boss, and listen, because whatever master said, sometimes even hurting his own people. But everything he did was always for the betterment of his people and enforcing the system that he was in, not of, but he was in, caused him to have to do that. Now, the one who was Sambo, he was of master's system. And so he was worse because he might even pretend to be your friend, but he would still go ahead and say something about you right behind your back. So house slaves and field slaves were taught to hate each other, but oftentimes it was field slaves that would get house slaves that they couldn't get, and house slaves would get field slaves that they couldn't get. Or, how men were against women, how wild that is? Like nowadays, black women and black men have been taught to hate each other so much that black women are like, I ain't gonna do nothing for this and blah blah. He shouldn't have extra and he should do blah blah. And black men are like, we don't need you, this and that. But do you know that during child slave times, right, that when black men were being punished and they would tie them to a pole and they would say, you're not gonna eat for a couple weeks, you're gonna be out in the sun. Hopefully you make it, N-word. And they leave them out there. There would be black women, not only who would try to sneak in food, but if they couldn't sneak in food, black women that were breastfeeding would come up to the brother and make sure that they gave him some food. Right? Now black women have been taught that a black man ain't worth giving nothing. Right? Or there would be times to where a black woman would be in trouble. Somebody be trying to do something to her. Right? And let's be honest, we're not acting like they didn't stop the rape and stuff going on for many different reasons. That being said, if it was found out that some of that happened, we only hear about that, blah, blah. And yes, some of that stuff did happen. But guess what? Sometimes that meant that Master's son was going, I'm sorry, I said the word I wasn't supposed to say it, who S.A. one of ours, especially when it was a little girl or something, Master's son might wake up with a body part missing. And let Master try to say something. What are you going to say? You going to try to come at us all? We outnumber you. We play this game because of whatever, but in this instance, no. We outnumber you, and you're going to find out, so your son, right, who decided he was going to get off, whatever, and do whatever in power, look, we might not be able to do what we really want to do, but now you got a warning every time. I'm not saying this was every plantation. It definitely wasn't, but there was a lot more of that than you think. But now, the sisters start saying, I feel like I'm ostracized, and men are talking about, not only are we not willing to protect him, we're willing to get on the side of the oppressor and use the same language that he's using. What you say when we as a gender say we don't need the other, we're out of Allah comes order, for real, right? And it used to be that would never, I'll leave that alone. But bitter slavery, because I could be there all day, but we got like 3 minutes left before the music starts to play. So bitter slavery, you're coming out of chattel slavery. Passover is us coming out of slavery. Passover is us coming out of bondage, right? Even the word kimet, Masaraim or Masaraim or Misraim is the term bondage. When they say Egypt or Misraim, for us it represents bondage. We're coming out of bondage, right? So as we get ready to come out of bondage, let's come all the way out. Let's get to a place to what Yah has for us. Let's be what he wants for us. Let's think how he's called us to think. Let's love how he's called us to love. And let's take this bitter, right? This wormwood, this rosemary, right? This dandelion, whatever it is, even if you can get it to the root. And let's get to the root of the problem and be willing to say, hey, we've had some really jacked up stuff that's been leading us and guiding us. And enough is enough. All right? Hopefully you touch and agree. My time is up for this evening. We'll be back with one more of these tomorrow evening, and then on Friday it's going to be Passover on Zoom. So Friday there will be no evening live session at all. It'll just be Passover on Zoom. So we hope to see you guys there. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you at the top of the hour on the Zoom session. Tonight is the 6th word, which is it is finished. I believe it's Elder Select Tamara that's giving that word this evening, so we're excited about that. Prayerfully you can join us. Pray for her. Keep her lifted up. Keep lifted up everybody who's traveling, especially those who are going to be traveling the next few days to Sedona. And like we said, if you're interested, there's a game we'll probably be playing on Friday. If you're joining on Zoom, I'm still trying to figure out how we're going to make it work. We might not be able to. We might do something slightly different for you all, but just in case we can, if you can get yourself some solo cups. Doesn't matter if they're red, blue, big ones. They can't be too small. They're like little shot ones or whatever they have. But if you can get yourself some solo cups and be ready, we might have a nice little game that we think you guys would like called Blind Faith. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Love y'all to life. We'll see you on the Zoom session in a couple minutes. And thank you again. As always, we give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma. And remember, as always, family, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be ever. Shalom. Take care. Talk to you soon.